Hi guys. So this is our next chapter that we'll be working on, which is chapter 14, Principles of Hair Design. This is actually kind of a cool one that we get to learn about the, shape of the face and all that kind of stuff before we get into hairstyling. So our learning objectives are to describe sources of hair design inspiration, list the 5 elements of hair design and how they relate to hairstyling, explain the 5 principles and recognize their specific contribution to a hairstyle, understand the influence of hair type and texture on design, identify the 7 different facial shapes and design a beneficial hairstyle for each, and explain 2 design considerations for men. So what are the principles of hair design? So there's 5 elements of design, 5 principles of hair design, and understanding facial shapes. So why is it important to understand the principles? So it's really important to understand if a specific hairstyle is going to work for your client. Many clients come in with pictures that they see on Pinterest or on the internet or in a magazine, whatever, and the face shape of the person that that haircut is on may be totally different from the shape of the face that the client has. So it's really important to understand that if that hairstyle is not going to work on their face shape, that you can understand that and pass that information along to the client. They help as a really good guideline to, get you to your styling vision when you decide to create, a certain look for somebody. The principles of hair design are really important in how you finish that. You'll be able to create haircuts and styles to help customers. So there's customers that maybe have, um, they don't like their nose, or they don't like their chin, or they don't like their forehead. So understanding the principles of hair design help you to be able to either camouflage if they have an issue with a face, something on their face that they don't like, or if they really like their profile or they really like their eyes or things like that, then you're able to actually emphasize that based on our on the principles. So design is the foundation of all artistic applications. All artists, architects, fashion designers, interior designers, all have a strong visual eye. I also believe that hairstylists have a very strong visual eye. Um, Everything we do, deals with what we see, how we see it, our vision, and how we make our vision come to life. With the elements of design, you can learn how to design the best hairstyle for your client. The 5 elements of hair design are line, form, space, texture, and color. So what is a line? So a line defines form and space. It creates form or movement in a hairstyle. So there are 4 different types of lines. There's the horizontal, which is this way. There's vertical, which is this way. There is diagonal, and there is curved. So on the right-hand side of the screen, I have some pictures of some examples of different lines in a hairstyle, so you can kind of understand what we mean when we say by a line in a hairstyle. So form is the mass or general outline of a hairstyle. It's 3-dimensional, has length, width, and depth, can also be referred to as volume. So someone that has a lot of volume in their hair. Here's an example on the screen of a picture of someone who has lots of volume. So proportion of the hair form should be in proportion to the shape of the head and the face. So if you have someone with like a tiny little face, you don't want to have hair that, takes up more of the space than needed. That sort of also almost makes their face disappear. So you have to be really, you really have to think about the type of hair that they have, and you have to make sure that it is in proportion to, everything else that goes with them. Space. What is space? So space is the area surrounding the form or the area the hairstyle occupies. The relationship between form and space, we are aware of the positive form rather than the negative space. In hair design, with every movement in the relationship, form and space change. Design texture. So texture is the directional wave pattern or illusion of motion in the hair. The hair texture must be taken into consideration when you're creating a style because if you've ever done work with people with extremely curly hair, it's always best to go with it than to fight it. So texture can be created temporarily with heat or wet styling if they have straight hair, and chemical wave pattern changes are considered permanent using relaxers or permanent wave solutions. So here's a couple of examples of design texture. So the picture at the top, she has, that extremely curly hair and has a very specific wave pattern. Trying to fight against that would be, almost impossible. So, going with it creates an awesome hair design. Hair color design. Hair color plays an important role in design, both visually and psychologically. It can be used to help define texture and align in a design. So the photo that I have in here actually is a kind of a really cool depiction of how you can place hair color in a specific place to add either dimension or make it a focal point. In this photo, I find that it is definitely makes the purple or the pink, whatever you call it, at the front, definitely becomes a focal point of that hairstyle and brings sort of more attention to, her face. So dimension with color, light and warm colors give the illusion of volume. Dark, cool colors receive or move inward towards the head. Color can act as an illusion and helps create lines of attention. Again, this picture here it's considered a line of attention. Because the eye is drawn to the lightest color, you can use it to draw a line in the direction you want the eyes to travel. Create a visual plan for placement and patterns of your color choices. So if you're going to create a color plan for your client, it's really important to figure out your vision of how you want that color to work with the lines that you're going to be doing with the style, where you want the eye to go, where you want it to kind of go away from. So it's really important to understand all of that with your color placement before you begin. So the 5 principles of hair design are proportion, balance, rhythm, emphasis, and harmony. So proportion is the comparative relationship of one thing to another. Body proportion, hair and body proportions, they must be compatible, and they have some actually good examples on page 303 of your textbook. Larger hips, broader shoulders go with a larger hairstyle. A good example of that is the picture that I have in the top corner of Adele. Always sort of more of a larger build, bigger shoulders, broader hips. If she had a tiny little pixie haircut, it would kind of look, it wouldn't suit, it wouldn't fit her because of her body style. So it's important that her hairstyle goes with her body type. Hair should never be wider than the center of the shoulders. Again, that's a really good visual there with Adele. You can see her hair sits like right in the center of her shoulders, so it doesn't go beyond that. Again, there's a picture below that of Kelly Ripa, and she is apparently a very tiny little person. So if you were to put a hairstyle like Adele's on someone like Kelly, who's a very tiny little person, it would take over. It would be the entire, all you would see would be hair. So it's really important to understand the body type, as well as the face shape and everything that goes along with the hairstyle. So balance. Balance is establishing equal or appropriate proportions to create symmetry. It signifies the proper degree of height and width, can be symmetrical or asymmetrical. To measure for symmetry, divide the face into 4 equal parts, where the line cross is the central axis. For the style to be symmetrical both sides, it has to be the same distance from the axis. A good thing of that is on page 304 of your textbook. So symmetrical balance, the design is similar on both sides and both are the same distance from the center. Asymmetrical balance is when two imaginary halves of a hairstyle have equal visual weight but are positioned unevenly. So here's an example of asymmetrical on the left and symmetrical on the right. You can see on the right side, it's the exact same on both sides, where on the left, it's shorter on one, longer in the other. That's what we consider the asymmetrical. Rhythm. So rhythm is the regular recurrent pattern of movement in a style. So movement is sort of like what you think of, how things move. So the movement in the hair can be considered either fast or slow. So the two pictures that I have, the one at the top, the picture with the really curly hair, that movement would be considered fast because the curls are really tight together. The one below that, her hair is more of like loose curls or loose waves. So that would be considered a slow rhythm because of, the larger, so think of it like the beat of a song. The faster the beat, the closer the curls. The slower the beat, the bigger the curls. Emphasis is known as the focus into a design. It's where it draws the eye first before it travels to the rest of the style. It's created in several different ways, with wave pattern, color, change in form, or ornamentation. So the emphasis or focus is something that you have to sort of decide prior to beginning your style so that you know that that's going to be the focal point. Here's a couple of examples of emphasis. So on the left, they've done it with hair color. They've made it very prominent with the purple, that's where they want your eye to go. And they've, everything else sort of melts in behind it, but your eye immediately goes to the purple. On the right side, with the balayage that they have here, there's multiple colors in there. So for me, my visual eye immediately goes to the mid shaft where there's like a reddish tone in there. That's where my focal point is when I look at this hairstyle, is I see that mid shaft color in there. That's where, to me, that would be my focal point looking at that style. Harmony. Harmony is one of the most important art principles. It holds all of the elements together. Form with interesting lines, pleasing color or combination of color and textures, balance and rhythm that work together to strengthen the design. And it takes into account physical characteristics, the shape of the head, the front, the profile, and the back, the length of the neck, the facial features, and the body shape and posture. So looking at the picture that I have here, in my opinion, this is a perfect example of harmony in a style. So it has a really nice form with interesting lines. The color combination works really well with her texture. Her balance and rhythm, I think, are really nice with that sort of a looser curl. Again, it takes into account the shape of her face. She has a bit of a longer neck, so longer hair is okay with that. Her body shape and posture, in my opinion, it might be a little on the bigger side, but I'm a child of the 80s, so for me, big hair is great. If anything, I would maybe, tone it down just a little wee bit, but otherwise I think that this is actually a perfect picture of what harmony is in hairstyle. So to create harmony between hairstyle and facial structure, facial shape is determined by the position and prominence of your facial bones. So the face is divided into 3 zones. So there's forehead to eyebrow, eyebrows to the end of the nose, and the end of the nose to the bottom of the chin. So those are the 3 zones of the face, and there are 7 basic facial shapes. There's oval, round, square, triangular, oblong, diamond, and inverted triangle. So here's a good depiction of the face shapes with sort of a description under each of them. I will hand out one of these sheets to you guys so that you have this sort of as a reference for your own notes. But it's kind of a really cool picture of, you know, how you can look at people's face and kind of figure out where their face shape lands in this. So your profile, again, when we think of, say, our profile section where we start, you know, from front to back, the profile is the outline of the face, which is seen from the side. So when you turn your head to the side, you know, the profile is what everybody sees. So looking, so there's 3 different kinds. There's straight, convex, and concave. So looking at the picture, on the left is a straight profile. On the right at the top is a convex, which means the facial shape sort of comes out. And a concave means that the facial shape sort of from the forehead sort of comes in. So it's really important to understand those types of facial shapes and profiles. Again, when you're trying to figure out creating a hairstyle for someone with that sort of a profile, it's important because you want to have it look good from the front, from the side, and from the back. Head shape and hair partings. So not all head shapes are round. I'm a good example of that. I have sort of like a egg-shaped head if I didn't have hair. So it's important to evaluate the head shape before deciding on a style. Design the style with the volume in areas that are flat or small while reducing the areas that are prominent. Hair partings can be a focal point for a hairstyle because the eye will be actually drawn to it. So depending on where you part the hair, if it's a fairly dramatic style, immediately your eye will go to that parting. So you want to make sure yeah, so it's really important to make sure that your partings are put in a spot on the head that are going to be that it's going to look nice. You don't want to put it somewhere where you're kind of be looking at it going, it kind of draws attention to something that you don't want it to. So the part should always be clean and neat because there's nothing worse than, you know, you're trying to draw attention to something and then it looks a mess. And if you can, as much as possible, use the natural part because again, trying to fight it can be really difficult and sometimes it's really not worth the fight. So we have a triangular part or the fringe portion, the diagonal part, curved part, a center part, side part, diagonal back, and zigzag. So here are some really good examples of all of these types of parts on the head. Of course, center, zigzag, diagonal back, diagonal curved, side part, and a triangular part with the actual fringe included in it. So again, when you see these pictures, the first thing you do is your eyes go to the part. So it's really important that it looks nice and clean and that, you know, it's there on purpose. That's the whole point, is you want it to look like you put it there on purpose. So design for men. Men's hairstyling is a little bit different because they can include facial hair. So the hairstyle should be flattering and appropriate for the client's career, hair type, and lifestyle. Again, it sort of depends on, you know, what they like, what their hair type is like. It's sort of difficult sometimes to, I find it's a little bit difficult sometimes to deal with men that are in the process of losing their hair or have lost some of their hair, that they're trying to hide it with like these big comb overs and stuff. So, you know, in my many years of doing hair, you know, you kind of try and find a way to make them comfortable with maybe getting rid of the comb over and, you know, owning that, you know, their hair, cut it shorter because cutting it shorter always makes it look like they have more hair. Over the years, men's styles have changed to become longer and tousled and back to full fade with disconnection. Here's a couple of examples again. So in the bottom, the picture is a full fade with a totally disconnected haircut where, the part again sort of draws the eye to that picture. And, it's a very well done, nice, clean, neat looking hairstyle. And then in the top right, there's a picture of a guy with longer sort of tousled hair, and then beside that, sort of a little bit that haircut is basically considered a uniform layered haircut. That's kind of more, tousled, not perfect type of thing, where I think it's kind of right now, sort of anything goes. I find in men's hairstyling, there's no specific trend that everybody follows. It's kind of, your own rules at this point. Facial hair can be used for a style to disguise a facial flaw. Facial hair should always appear well groomed and flattering to the client, regardless of current trends. So again, in these three photos, all three of the men have facial hair at different, you know, spots of growth. Bradley Cooper, sort of like the 3-day shadow. Brock O'Hearn, a little bit more of like the full beard, a little bit more rougher. And the guy at the bottom, that is a very neat, clean, well kept, well groomed beard that goes along with his style. So you wouldn't have, a beard like that on, that's so manicured and properly done on a face like with Bradley Cooper to go with that hairstyle. It wouldn't really match. So it's really important that the facial hair match the hairstyle. So for your homework this week, please complete the questions 1 to 113 in your theory workbook for next week. Have a great week, everybody.